Hey guys, Brian here. Today we're going to be doing a projector headlight retrofit on a Mazda Protege 5, and I'm going to walk you guys through it and show you how I do it. Sorry I look like a mess today. It's like boiling hot outside and I've been in the sun all day and I'm just like drenched, but yeah, I still got to go out and do this. And yeah, retrofitting your headlights is a great idea if you want upgraded headlights with much higher output than stock halogen bulbs. There is the possibility of putting the newfangled LED headlights into your factory reflector housings, but most of them will just scatter light and blind other people, as you might have seen driving down the road and having oncoming traffic just glare their LEDs at you. And the ones that actually do work well in reflector housing, such as the Diodynamics SL1 and the Morimoto 2-stroke 2.0 that are very commonly praised by the headlight community, are quite expensive. Here in Canada, you're looking at about $200 Canadian shipped for a pair of SL1s or 2-strokes. And they still aren't as good as even low-tier eBay or Amazon special HID bulbs. LED bulbs just haven't gotten to that level yet. So today I'm going to show you how to do a cheap projector retrofit to get really good headlight output without blinding traffic and not spending a whole lot of money. So this is the kit that we're going to be using. This is just a set I got off of Amazon. And like I said, a set of SL1s or 2-strokes here in Canada is going to run us about $200 plus shipped a set. Both of these together cost about $80 shipped per set off of Amazon Prime. And it's just a set of cheap bi-xenon projector lenses designed for retrofitting and designed for use with HID headlights, because a lot of pre-made projector housings, aftermarket projector housings for various vehicles are only made for halogens and won't work well with HID bulbs. These are actually made for HIDs, and a SafeGo H1 HID kit. This is just a generic 6000K H1 kit. Nothing special. You can get far better than this, including, you know, there's Osram bulbs and Hilux ballasts, and you can go as crazy as you want, but this is a cheap solution to get really good headlight output, as long as you're willing to go through the effort of retrofitting. So let's go and do that. Now, the Protege 5 that we are working on is a dual bulb headlight, which means that it's a separate bulb for low beam and high beam. But if you're using it on a vehicle that has a combined beam, like a regular Protege sedan that uses a H4 bulb, or another vehicle that has dual filament bulb like 9004 or 9007, what you want to do first is hook up the bi-xenon headlight with some test leads to a power source, a 12-volt power source, or even a 9-volt battery usually gets the job done, and just cycle the solenoid to make sure that the solenoid does indeed actuate, because it would really suck to put these in your headlights and then realize that you don't have high beams because the solenoid doesn't work, was dead on arrival. So we're out here at the car, and as you can see, you have your low beam as one separate bulb in H7, and then 9005 high beam on the Protege 5 wagon, as opposed to on the sedan, where it's just a combined H4 bulb. Now, the removal process for the sedan and the wagon is going to be the same, and pretty much the disassembly and retrofitting process is also going to be identical. It's just that you're going to have to wire things up a little bit differently on the sedan with a combined bulb compared to the separate bulb, which is just a straight up wiring. For the combined bulb, you're going to have to do a relay harness to get your low and high beams to work properly. So to start off, removal of the bumper, which you have to pull back before the headlights. You don't necessarily have to remove the bumper, you just got to be able to pull it back so you can access the bolts under the headlight. You're going to have 2 screws, Phillips screws, one on each side of the grille. To cut down on this, just so I don't have to film for an hour of me actually doing everything, a lot of this has already been removed. But yeah, 2 screws on each side, and then you're going to have 2 plastic clips holding it in here. So once you remove those plastic clips that just pull out and the 2 screws, what you're going to want to do is pull up on the grill first, so you can unlatch the grill from the bumper, because there's tabs holding the grill to the bumper. And once you have the grill separated from the bumper, just pull straight out. And the grill will come out. And now what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go to the side of the car, and for each side you're going to want to turn the wheel facing inward so you can access the plastic tabs holding the fender liner onto the bumper. You don't have to take off the last three, this one, and this one. And these plastic tabs are basically small Phillips inserts in a plastic circle. So what you're going to want to do is you want to, if you can, get your, because it's going to be further in like this, what you're going to want to do is get your fingernail between the inner piece and outer piece, and at the same time, if you can't just pull it out, you're going to want to turn it with a Phillips screwdriver. Don't use a drill or anything aggressive because it's just going to strip it, it's plastic, and apply outward pressure while you spin it just to pull that piece out. But for the most part, you generally can just do it with your bare hands if you have decent fingernails. So yeah, once that's out, pull the inner piece out, and then you can separate the two. If you pull it out, usually it just falls out. Now, what you want to do is you want to pull back the fender liner that you just got access to. And on the inside of the bumper here, I don't know if you can see that very well, but there's one 8mm screw right at the edge there. And there's another 8mm screw in there. So you're going to want to remove those two screws, and then you'll be able to pull the bumper out. So once you do that on each side, you're going to have to remove the plastic pieces and the two 8mm head fasteners on each side. You're going to want to just pull outwards. The bumper will get loose. And just pull it away from the front of the car. Already done it on that side, so the bumper is loose on this side as well. And you only have to pull back the bumper so far. You don't actually have to remove the bumper. All you need is access to one 10mm head bolt here, and come on, focus. There's another 10mm head bolt in there. See if I can get a better view on this side. There we go. One 10mm head bolt there. And of course one on the top, but you don't need to remove the bumper to get to that. So now what you have to do is remove the 1, 2, 3 10mm bolts there, and then you can remove the headlight. So once you got all the screws out, and of course make sure you unplug all of the bulbs on the back side, which are pretty self-explanatory. Just lift up on this tab here because it does have a little plastic retainer holding it in place, so lift up on it, and then remove your headlight. Which is awkward with one hand. There you go. Now your headlight's out. Do the same for the other side, and then we'll bring the headlights inside and go from there. Now here comes the interesting part. We have the headlights here in the kitchen, and then we're gonna bake them, which is the rather interesting part of retrofitting your headlights. But yeah, you gotta bake them in the oven to soften the butyl that holds them together, and then be able to open them up so that you can place your projector housings inside, or projector lens I should say. So first thing you're going to want to do is start heating up the oven. Set it to a low temperature. We're going to put it about, usually 270 is what's recommended, so we're going to put it there. And then while it's heating up, you're going to want to go over your headlights. And on each headlight, what you're going to want to do is remove all of the screws and vent pieces. So you'll see that there's these various rubber hoses just placed at various points around the headlight. So you're going to want to remove all those. They just come off, they just twist and pull off. And remove all the screws around the headlight. So there's two screws holding this bracket on here, a screw holding the headlight housing there, and basically just go around it and make sure that you remove everything that's not part of the headlight assembly itself, and of course the rubber boots and the bulbs and whatnot. So we're just going to do that now, and then yeah, next step. So once you have everything out, all the brackets, screws, rubber pieces, and bulbs, you're going to get your baking sheet. I think that's what they call these. I actually don't know the English name of it for sure, but one of these, you're going to take a clean towel and put it on top. Don't use a dirty towel because it will burn off all of whatever's on there and smell really nasty. Been there, done that. Place it on the sheet. Then take your headlight and place it on top. So it doesn't Try not to make it contact the sheet and have the towel in between anywhere where it would normally contact the sheet there. And there you go. And now you're ready to put your headlight in the oven. Now you only want it in here for a few minutes, of course. Only about, I honestly only use it for about 5 minutes. Keep an eye on it. You want it to be hot, of course, so that it can melt the glue. But you don't want it to be so hot that it just melts all the plastic of the headlight. So yeah, stay with it for a bit. Give it about 5 minutes. You want it to be kind of uncomfortably hot to the touch, but you don't want it to, of course, be really soft and flexible either, because then you start melting plastics and whatnot. Yeah, give it a few minutes. Have your flathead screwdriver ready and some gloves or just rags to grab onto it with, because of course it will be hot. And yeah, be ready to, as soon as you pull it out of the oven, start prying on it with the screwdriver to pull the two halves apart. So now I already have this headlight apart. It took a bit longer than 5 minutes. It took about 8 to 10 minutes to soften it up enough to get it to the comfortable temperature for me to pull it apart. I'll show you what the process is like on the other one that's currently in the oven, but I'll just show you the process so far on how to pull it apart with this one. And so what you're gonna want to do is, once you pull it out of the oven, you're gonna want to lift up on these tabs. They'll be really soft, just plastic tabs that hold it on. And generally what I do with Protege headlights is this tab, this tab, this tab, and this tab, and possibly the one up here. And I grab a flathead screwdriver, put it in between the black plastic and clear plastic parts, and just start prying it apart. Start prying it, go along the seam, and then once it gets opened enough and cooled down enough to a certain point, you can just kind of grab each side with each hand and just pull it apart. And so I'm going to show you that right now. And get your screwdriver in there, in between the two plastic pieces, just pry apart. Work your way down, just pry out. You'll see the two halves beginning to separate there. Once you have it to this point, when there's about a finger-sized gap in between the two, you can generally just use your hands to pull the rest apart. If an area is not coming off, then you can just pry on some more the flathead. This area is a bit hard to come off right now, but we'll just pry on it some more with the screwdriver just to break the adhesive there. Then you can start pulling it apart slowly, but still with a bit of force into it. And there you are. And there it's apart. So now that you got it opened up, generally a good idea to start to just clean up inside the housing here with the dust that gets in. What some people like to do is just paint the inside of the housing. Because you're putting a projector in it, you won't need all this reflective chrome that comes in the headlight anymore, and some people just like to paint this black. Because this is a silver car, I think it looks pretty good with the chrome, so I'm just gonna leave it. But if you have a black car or a darker colored car, or just wanted to paint it black or color matching to your car, then you can mask off the high beam if you're still using a reflector high beam. I assume you still are. Mask that off, and then you can paint your low beam. Or if you're using a bi-xenon for a single filament headlight and you're replacing, you're just gonna have the projector lens in there, then you can just paint the whole thing. But yeah, that's open now. So now we're gonna go in and install our projector lens. So now we're back on the bed with the headlight, and first thing you want to do is remove the two Phillips screws here that hold the metal retainer in that would normally hold the bulb, and the bottom one would hold the reflective shield for the bulb. So you're going to want to remove those and then pull the reflective shield out from the front. You're not going to need that anymore. And then you're going to get your projector, remove the 3 screws that are holding on this plate. They're small screws, and careful, the cheap ones do tend to strip pretty easily. So gently remove those. Go in your hardware package and find the correct adapter for your headlight. If you're doing a Protege sedan, you're going to use this one, which is an H4 adapter. For the P5, you're going to be using this one, which is the H7 bulb adapter, which was the bulb that was in here previously. So once you've taken off these 3 screws that hold on the bulb retainer plate, you're going to have this big nut on the threaded shaft. Remove that big nut, and then place on the correct rubber ring for your installation. The H4 one is going to have a bigger one that is also included with this kit, but because we're using H7, we're using the smaller ring. And now all you got to do is place the projector into the headlight, paying close attention to the top marking on the projector, because obviously you don't want to put it in upside down. So just insert the projector with the threaded shaft into the headlight. You can see it there. Hello. Now take your H7 spacer adapter, place it facing the correct way. You're going to see that there's a notch. Oops. There's a notch here that would fit this into the housing. So you're going to want to try facing the camera here. Line it up with the housing like that. So there's going to be a notch on the bottom of the piece here that lines up with the projector lens, and the notch on the top is going to line up with the inside of the headlight on that metal bracket there. So once you make them both happy and finesse it into place, then you can get that big nut again and thread the big nut onto the threaded shaft of the projector and tighten it up. There we are. So now that that's tightened up, you're going to want to use your device of choice. You can use either just a long pliers to get in there and snug it up, and then after that attach your bulb retaining plate to here with the 3 screws that you originally took off, and then take your shroud. This one just comes with a generic shroud, and then just clip it onto the front of the projector. This one just clicks on. I might use a bit of super glue to hold that in just so it doesn't fall off. So I'm gonna go do that, and then I'll be right back. Okay, now that we've got our shroud securely glued to the front of the projector and the mounting bracket for the bulb attached to the rear, be careful when putting in these 3 screws, because if you get it inside the projector or even inside to the, like it falls into the headlight housing, it can be a pretty big and having to fish that out again. Alright, so now that we have both the projectors installed and secured up, tightened up, we can start to bake it back together. Just as you needed to put it in the oven, heat it up to soften the adhesive and remove the cover, now to put it back on and seal it again, you need to put them in the oven again and heat up the adhesive once more. With Protege headlights, they come with quite a bit of adhesive, and I found that doing it in the past, this is the 3rd Protege retrofit I've done, there's enough adhesive on there to just put it back together. But on some other vehicles, if you are doing a retrofit, there's not a whole lot of adhesive on it, and you generally lose some when you're pulling it apart, and then it doesn't even out that much anymore. You might have to buy some butyl headlight sealant to make up for that and seal it up again. But as far as Protege headlights go, they just give you so much on there that it's fine to just reheat it and put it back together. I've never had any issues with moisture or anything like that. Of course, before putting it in the oven, because you've inevitably grabbed and manhandled it, finessing everything together, you're going to want to just wipe down and clean all of the surfaces on the inside, especially the chrome, because you don't want to see fingerprints or anything like that after you put it back together. As far as the outside shell goes, that's something that you can redo or just clean up, polish after it's on the car, but everything on the inside, you want it to be really nice and clean before you put it back in the oven and bake it together so you don't have to rip it apart again. So all you really have to do is just place the clear plastic back on the headlight, and of course there's a bit of adhesive around it, so we'll just kind of stick to it. And yeah, all you got to do is just leave it like that. Place it back onto the sheet that you had before, the one with the towel on it, and then place it back into the oven. Again, I just have it set to the 270 degrees that it was before. Make sure the water's catching. Back in there, bake it for another 8 to 10 minutes, whatever they did the first time, and then pull them back out. And once you pull it out of the oven, you just want to squeeze the two halves together just by hand. And just squeeze it just enough so that you can push the plastic tabs back forward and over the little nubs on the clear plastic part. So just squeeze it all the way around, push the plastic tabs down, retain it in place. And that's all you gotta do. And then repeat for the other headlight. And now I like to put the HID bulb in first before you put it in the car, because the cheaper projector lens tend to kind of be a bit finicky with the mounting solution they have for the bulb. It's not the greatest, so I just do it outside of the car just to save time and frustration. So just put the bulb in, take the metal retainer. There's going to be 2 holes at the top here that the 2 pegs of the retainer are going to slide into. Pretty small holes, so you kind of have to find your way out. There you go. And so once the bulb and the retainer are into their respective holes, just along the bottom, you're going to have a hook that the bottom half of the retainer will just hook into. Due being the first time, it's going to be a bit tight, a bit stiff to push it in. Once it's hooked in, then you're good to go. And there is your finished product. And as far as wiring goes, you just want to pull all the wires through the factory grommet that was on the H7. And most HID kits, like this one included, will have a little grommet here that you're supposed to drill a hole in a factory hardcover for, but it just so happens to pretty much perfectly line up with the Protege factory dust cover. So you basically just finesse both sides of it to sit in the middle there, and it provides a pretty nice seal. And then just make sure that the metal bracket here and the 2 water drains get put back where you found them, out to the car. Alright, so we got everything back together. As with many things in the automotive world, installation is just the opposite of removal. So put the headlight back in, install the 3 10mm bolts holding it in, and then just clip the bumper back into its mounts, its brackets on the side, reinstall the 2 8mm bolts holding it in, and all the plastic clips holding the fender liner in. Put the grill back on, install, when you're putting in the grill, it's usually easier to put in the bottom first and then put in the top. Excuse all the noise in the background, by the way. This is what happens when you film in a pretty crowded neighborhood with lots of kids on a Wednesday evening. But as far as wiring goes, this particular kit, because this is an H7 and H4 car, just comes with spade terminals. Right now, for the moment, they're jammed into the factory connector. But what I might do is, because this is an unnecessary connection, I'll probably just cut this off, splice it into the factory pigtail so I can have some just the lone weather pack connector that plugs into the ballast there. Ballast is just mounted up here by my rusty ass strut towers. And as far as this car goes, the high beam solenoid doesn't exactly have to be hooked up because, again, it is a separate low and high beam headlight, but I just have it tapped into the high beam bulb anyway, so whenever the high beam bulb comes on, the solenoid will also engage, so you get both your HID and your halogen high beams for added high beaming. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Quite happy with how it turned out. Well, that's all she wrote. I hope this video helped you guys in some way, whether you're trying to just remove and replace your headlight assembly, or whether you're trying to do a full projector retrofit like we did. Thank you very much for watching, and if you haven't done anything until you got to the end of this video, then I wish you the best of luck. Bye-bye.